All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Fort Worth Community Arts Center's Boxed Lunch program. We are so excited to be here today and looking forward to venturing all the way to Egypt. I'm so excited. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Jennifer Casler Price. I wanted to check and make sure I said that right. Jennifer,
Casler.
how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well and so grateful for you taking the time and so very excited to hear about all of the great things that you've got going on. Before we get into that, do you mind just introducing yourself, telling us
Of
a little bit
course.
about who you are and what it is you do?
Okay, so Jennifer Casler Price.
Casler.
Casler.
Oh, see, I thought the L was a K. That's what I get for
That's
reading my
okay.
notes.
So I am the curator of Asian, African, and Ancient American art at the Kimbell Art Museum. I have been here since 1993, so
Wow.
almost 28 years. This is only my second museum job. I was at the Metropolitan Museum. I was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. I went to graduate school in New York, and I started at the Met with an internship that turned into a part-time job and then a full-time, and then I got the position here. So, and I actually did. I'm originally from New York, but then I grew up in Dallas. So I'm kind of, I'm kind of New York, I'm kind of Texas. I can put on whatever accent I need to. So for the Asian, African, and Ancient American here, that actually represents half the collection. I mean, numbers wise, half. Anything non-European I deal with. Including anything else they want to throw at me. So Egypt, Balenciaga in black, Louis Kahn retrospective. I just kind of, I'm a jack of all trades, but I love it. It's fantastic. And so, yes, I'm the in-house curator for our current exhibition, Queen Nefertari's Egypt.
Yes. What was it like producing that in a pandemic? I can only imagine, because that all kind of happened right in the middle of all of this. Is that correct?
Yes. So that exhibition had been touring around, and thankfully I had seen it in 3 different museums. And it was in Kansas City at the Nelson Atkins just prior to the pandemic lockdown. And so thankfully I had gone with my team from the Kimball and my design team in December of 2019 to go see the show, take all the notes, kind of figure out how we wanted to present the show here at the Kimball. And I guess in January, February, our design team had already come up with kind of a preliminary layout. And then March, we all go home. And so we immediately have to start to completely rethink about how we're going to present the exhibition here at the Kimball. Not the least of which is, how are we actually going to get it from Kansas City to the Kimball? That was another problem in and of itself. And so just working with the design team on the installation, some of the considerations we had were, social distancing, having enough space. And this is a big show, and it takes up 2 gallery spaces. It's 230 works of art, everything from tiny little amulets to monumental stone sculptures to wooden coffins. So we kind of redirected the design a little bit, and kind of pushing things to the wall to make pathways, but also having to completely rethink what we call our kind of didactic information delivery. So labels and text panels, and normally we would have a label for every object that actually has something about that object, and we had that available. And we decided we just can't do that. We can't have people literally stopping and reading labels for every object. So just kind of rethinking that, instead of, you know, individual labels, kind of doing larger, what I call a chat label. So for each case, you know, there's a theme for that group of objects.
Right.
And so kind of editing all the material I had to present the didactics that way. Also just the whole way of doing the audio tour, because normally an audio tour leads you to a specific
Right.
object. And so we had to think about that also in kind of more general themes, and also to literally help people move through the gallery by telling them. And if you go down to the, you know, walk all the way down here to the case on the left. So that was, you know, inside the exhibition. Another thing that we did for the first time was we created a virtual reality
Right.
exhibition, and you can access that from our website.
Nice.
So that's really fun. So you can walk through the exhibition, and there's about 60 works you can click on, and you can read information, and there's some things for kids to do on there. So that's all accessible through the website, and you can watch that on an iPad or an iPhone or your desktop computer. And then also for the museum just itself, when we were getting ready to reopen in June, which we did, you know, we're just really thinking about keeping everybody safe.
Right.
And implementing social distancing through how, like in the lobby areas, how people are going to line up. Obviously, we have limits on how many people can be in the exhibition space at any one time. So thinking about that, thinking about how to keep people engaged while they're waiting for maybe an hour.
Yeah.
So we actually produced this, sorry, it's right here, this wonderful little brochure on
Nice.
the exhibition that has wonderful images and text, and kind of gives you a little primer on the exhibition. So, I mean, honestly, all these things that we've done have turned out great.
Good.
I mean, people are coming, you know, people want to go to museums and they want to see art, whether it's our permanent collection or whether it's a special exhibition.
Yeah.
So that's been wonderful. But there were other challenges too with just actually mounting the exhibition. I can go into that if you want me to, but do we want to talk about what we're making today?
Well, I was just going to ask, what is on your lunch menu today?
So I literally have a boxed lunch.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, I'm in my office here, and this is part of it too. And I wanted to give a shameless plug to our fantastic Kimball Buffet, which many,
Yes.
many people know of and many people enjoy. And it is open. And we do have the tables socially distanced. So you can come to the Kimball and you can get a boxed lunch, and we serve them in these, you know, sanitary containers with plasticware. We're hoping someday to go back to, you know, nice ceramic plates, but you get, you know, the Kimball soups are famous. And so you get, I think, a choice of soup, and I chose curried pumpkin with rice.
Ooh.
And I can tell you that the smell, it's like being in India.
Nice. It
It's
looks
so
delicious.
good. So
Now you
good.
called it a buffet. Are you actually buffet
Oh,
or is it boxed?
yeah. So I guess actually we're not calling it buffet anymore. You know, it used to be a buffet where you could go through and literally heap stuff
Yep.
onto your plate. And no, now it's served in a box, or as I say, this is actually, here you can see, but look at this. So this is everything that you would have normally gotten. So you have a choice. I chose quiche, but we also still have sandwiches. You get a green salad with choice of dressings, 3 different dressings, and a fruit cup.
Wow.
And then, oh, you get see in my bag? Cookie for dessert. And what else? And so, I have also our wonderful mango. In fact, I'm going to put my straw in so I can drink it. Mango iced tea.
Wow.
But I put a lemon in. So
Yeah, I'm not real sure shameless plug's the right word. I think that was a pretty crafted, well thought out, beautiful presentation of the offerings that are over there. I may
it
come
was
over
a
there.
curatorial
I
delivery.
know, I may come see if they want to sponsor this program.
Anyway, Peter Kreidler, who is our Kimball restaurant manager, he's wonderful. You know, he had to step into some pretty big shoes with Shelby Schaefer, who had been here for decades. But he's done a wonderful job, and he's made sure to keep you know, many of the favorites that people have enjoyed for years and are used to. A lot of the soups, and but he's added some new things to the menu, and you know, he's doing a great job. So we really do hope that people will come to the buffet. If you don't want to eat physically in the building, you can take your lunch away and go eat it in your office or at home. And also we're in the afternoons from 2 to 4. A new thing that we're doing is afternoon tea service for 2.
Oh, wow.
So very, you know, lovely pot of tea and little sandwiches and scones and jams. So
Wow,
you can
what a
drink your
fabulous venue. It sounds like you guys are certainly stepping up and making things work in a positive and productive manner. So hats off to all of
thank
you over
you.
there. That is some fantastic stuff going on.
Well, it's the whole staff. I have to give, you know, everyone that works here does their part. And
Wow.
it's truly we're a family here, you know. It's we call ourselves Team Kimball. So
Well, it
yeah.
seems like it is working well for you guys. So I'm also having some famous soup today, but mine's a little more little more basic today. I'm going with the famous Campbell's chicken noodle original.
You
Can't go
can't go
wrong
wrong.
on a nice cool day. And then
Yes.
my secret ingredient is Ritz crackers. So I just crush them up and then put them in the soup as well. So
Very
all right,
good.
so I'm going to heat my stuff up here. And while we're doing that, I have a question for you in regards to the specifics of the Queen. I'm going to say it wrong. I know I am. Nefertari.
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 Tari.
So, is her mummy there, or is it just the tombs and coffins?
Right. So, and I'm plating my soup.
I'm going to show you
While we
something funny.
speak.
This is the beauty of live interviews. I just broke the handle off of mine, so I'm going to get a can opener while you plate your soup.
Okay. So there's the wonderful soup. So what we have in the exhibition is Queen Nefertari's tomb was discovered in 1904 by the Italian archaeologist Ernesto Schiaparelli. And he was at that time the director of the Museo Egizio in Turin, Italy. That's where all the things in the exhibition come from. And the Egizio is actually one of the largest collections of Egyptian art outside of Cairo, and it's the oldest museum dedicated to Egyptian art, older than the Cairo Museum.
Wow.
And I think a lot of people don't really know that much about it. So the exhibition is a great opportunity to visit a museum that you might not otherwise get to go to. But when he discovered her tomb, and she we presume she died sometime around 1255 BC. The tomb had already been looted in antiquity. I mean, so there wasn't a whole lot left. The tomb robbers had, you know, taken pretty much anything of value, and that would have included, you know, her mummified body, which would have been in a coffin, a wooden coffin,
Right.
presumably probably gilded, which they would have taken. That was then in a huge pink granite sarcophagus, which they had to violently break open in order to get inside, to see the contents of the coffin. So what Schiaparelli found, were a few bits and pieces, but among the bits and pieces, he did find a pair of mummified knees,
Oh,
the queen's knees,
wow.
presumably. And one of the things that it's one of my favorite things in the exhibition. It's a pair of woven palm sandals
I've seen those. I saw.
that, again, we say presumably they belong to the queen. But what's really interesting is that the tomb itself, first of all, it was a big deal to discover it because it was huge, it was large. It was,
Right.
almost as large as a pharaoh's tomb, and it was double chambered with a staircase, and the whole tomb was frescoed with these fantastic murals that depict Nefertari and depict the gods and goddesses of the underworld and the journey that she has to make, this perilous journey that she has to make through the underworld in order to reach the god Osiris, the god of the afterlife, um, to be reborn, to have an eternal life. And for all Egyptians, royal and commoner alike, you know, an eternal afterlife was not just a given. You had to make this journey, and you had to pass all these tests, and you had to chant spells, and you had to, you know, jump over all these
Right.
hoops in order to reach the afterlife and be reborn. And the final test was that your heart had to be weighed on a scale against a feather,
Uh,
the feather belonging to the goddess Mat, who's the goddess of balance and justice.
right.
Anyway, but in the tomb, and the tomb itself is still in Egypt, and the murals are all there. But there's a depiction of her seated at a gaming table, the game of Senet, a little bit like chess. And this was one of the games that you had to play to win, to take the next step. And she's seated at the table, and she's wearing the sandals.
Oh,
She has the sandals on. So to me, it's such a personal item, and to imagine that maybe she wore them. um I know also that, like, the Egyptians believed, in the afterlife you need everything that you would need in this life.
right.
They believed you can take it with you, and you did. So I know, I'm a flip-flop girl. I don't go anywhere without a pair of flip-flops. And I've traveled all around the world. And if I don't have my flip-flops with me, you know, for those sticky situations
Right.
where you don't want to be going barefoot.
Uh,
So I'd have my flip-flops with me to go to the afterlife. So anyway, I love those sandals. Also, so we've kind of recreated one of the 6 sections in the exhibition is her tomb.
right.
With the few things that were left, her mummified knees, her sandals, shopties, who are the little worker figures, the little mummies that
Right.
come to life and do your work. And then there's a wonderful little amulet, and it's called a jed pillar. It represents the backbone of Osiris, which represents stability and regeneration. And it's made of gold and faience. And faience it's that turquoisey blue
Right.
kind of glassy material that you associate with some Egyptian art. And it's inscribed with her name on the back. It's only about, I don't know, 5-6 inches tall. Um, and it's something that the tomb robbers left behind, but it's because it's the only object that was found in the tomb in its original place, like where it was placed in the tomb, and it was placed in a little niche in the wall. So it was kind of hidden away, and that's why they didn't take it. Everything else was, they violently broke open this enormous pink granite sarcophagus lid, rooted around, tossed stuff around, took what they wanted to, and then what Schiaparelli found, we have in the exhibition. And then the other thing that's really cool though is that the Italian team, when they discovered the tomb, they made meticulous drawings of all of these murals.
Right.
And they created, they built a 110 scale model of the tomb, which we have in the exhibition. So and the tomb's underground, but this is, this wood model where, we have, there's plexi over the top. So you can see the whole layout of the tomb and the murals, and, see, this journey that she had to make. And what's interesting about that as well is that the tomb was closed. It was open to the public up until I think the 1950s. And then obviously, people breathing in an underground space, these frescoes are melting. So they closed the tomb off. And then in the 80s, the Getty Research Institute went in to restore the murals, and they used this model to help that as a guide, because the drawings are so precise, so exact.
Amazing.
So that's just one part of the show.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm curious, just from a personal point of view. So all that stuff that they stole has never turned up. What's the point of stealing it if you're not? I mean, do people really just put those things somewhere in a cave and just re-hide it?
Well, sometimes. I mean, it's hard to know in antiquity, and this happens in other cultures too. I mean, like, the Chinese also have a tradition of furnishing their tombs with materials that they take into their afterlife. And so, by the way, my field of specialization is Chinese art, but my umbrella here is is very wide. I cast a wide net. But at any rate, in antiquity, they're looking for precious materials. I mean, gold that can be
gold, not necessarily
melted down or sold, just things that they can make money off of. Now, when you start to get into modern times, and unfortunately do have instances of looting that took place in the 18th, 17th, 18th, 19th centuries. That's where people are selling things on a black market. That's a whole nother thorny issue. I will just say that with regard to Schiaparelli, and with regard to many of these European expeditions that took place in the 19th and 20th centuries, they were actually given commissions by the Egyptian government to go and excavate. And at this period in Egyptian history, in the modern period, they weren't doing excavations. They didn't have the resources. They weren't a great world power. So, they would, they would lease out, parcels of land for a fee. They would allow these teams to go in to excavate. And then the deal was whatever they found, whatever the team would find, the Egyptians had first refusal. They would say, okay, well, we want this, this, and this, and you can take the rest. This is how all these the in the Louvre, in the British Museum, even in museums in America, and the Museo Egizio. I mean, this is how these collections were created.
Wow.
I mean, they had the permission of the government, and it's really not until, early to mid 20th century that all of that thinking obviously turns around.
Wow. That's
Um,
crazy.
and it's a thorny issue because, as you may know, or some of the audience out there may know, that you know, there are, cultures that are trying to get their patrimony back.
Oh, sure.
They there's many stuff that has been stolen over time. As a
You guys,
curator, this is really a big issue in the curatorial field if you deal with anything of archaeological significance. It's a very thorny question. Yeah.
wow. That's just
And
so
the whole ethics of it.
incredibly interesting to me. You have some amazing scrolls as well, it looks like, in that exhibit too. Um,
Hmm.
I'm curious because I did look at them and I can't translate hieroglyphics. What's the meat and potatoes of some of the messaging on some of those scrolls?
Hmm. So we have two kinds of, there are three scrolls in the exhibition, and they're of two different types. One is a document called the Harem Conspiracy, and it's a scroll that is, oh, what, it's like 20 feet long. And it's written in a script, not in hieroglyphs, but in a hieratic script, which is more kind of like a cursive script.
Right?
And it's a script that would have been used for documentation, and written on papyrus. And it actually recounts this episode in Egyptian history of uh, the murder of Ramesses III. Nefertari was married; she was the wife of Ramesses II. But Ramesses III, there was this whole kind of palace intrigue where one of his wives, and he had many, she wanted her son to be the next uh, pharaoh on the throne. But there's always this jockeying around
Right?
between the wives. And so there was another son of another wife, that was going to take the throne, and she didn't like that. So long story short, she conspired with several, males in the palace, to murder Ramesses III, and they did. They kind of ambushed him and they stabbed him, and he didn't die right away, but he did die. And they were caught, the group of people, and put on trial. And so the proceedings of the trial are all documented in this papyrus, and the names of the people and the punishments that were meted out to them. And but the wife, she got away scot
Scot
free.
free.
Scot free. So
Wow.
then the other two papyri that we have, and they're in the final section with all the coffins. We have a whole section of coffins that actually date a little bit later than Nefertari's time. They date to around 750 BC. These are scrolls that have to do with the underworld, and they have to do with the story of the sun god Re, who has to make a journey every night to be reborn for the sun to come back up. And they're decorated. There's imagery on them, but then they're also the hieroglyphs, the pictograms that we kind of associate with Egyptian writing. That's what you see there. And so one of those scrolls shows the final test that you have to take before you can be reborn in the afterlife, and live an eternal life with Osiris, the god of the underworld. And it's the weighing of the heart. Your heart has to be weighed on a scale. And there's a goddess, Mat, and she is the goddess of balance and harmony and justice. And in her headdress, she has a feather. So your heart has to be weighed on the scale against Mat's feather. And if your heart is heavier, it means that your heart is not pure and you were not a good person. You do not pass go. You do not collect $200. You do not
No
get to
pressure.
live eternally. And your heart gets devoured by this beast. But if your heart is pure and it's not as heavy as the feather, then you pass go and you get to be reborn in eternal paradise. And the Egyptians believed that the afterlife was a paradise. It was this world, but better, but way better. So that's depicted on this wonderful scroll, and all these gods and goddesses of the Egyptian pantheon and of the underworld. So those are really wonderful, and a lot of that imagery is also painted on the coffins that are in that section. That was another discovery that Schiaparelli made. So he discovered her tomb. We knew about Nefertari before the discovery of the tomb. We knew that she was the favorite wife of Ramesses II. Her name actually means beautiful companion. He thought she was the most beautiful. She had the title of first royal spouse, great royal wife. So among his many wives, and pharaohs had many, many wives, she had that title. And then also, probably the most important is that he had 2 temples built at Abu Simbel. One dedicated to himself and the god Horus, which the pharaoh is an incarnation of the god Horus, but another temple right next to it dedicated to Nefertari and the goddess Hathor. So to have a temple built next to her husband's, it's a little smaller, but nonetheless, but dedicated to her. And then on the temple is inscribed, "The one for whom the sun shines." And that was a reference to the fact that Ramesses II thought that she was so beautiful that the sun rose every day to illuminate her face.
Wow, that's just
so poetry.
I know, so amazing. People look at things like that and they think the scroll is the work of art, which of course it is, but the things that you find out that are actually in there in the storytelling and those sort of things are just incredible.
It's the story, because there's not much left from the tomb itself in terms of the goods. There's actually no imagery of Nefertari in the exhibition, because the images that we have of her are either the ones sculpted on the temples or the painted ones in the tomb. So a lot of it is just, you're creating a story and kind of placing yourself in it. But we're looking at ancient Egypt, though, kind of through her eyes, through the eyes of women, both royal and commoner. The things that would have surrounded women in the palace, what their function was, how they functioned in religious ceremonies, kind of what their day-to-day life was. And then another really interesting component of the show is that Schiaparelli also excavated a village, a workers' village, the artisan village of Deir el Medina. And this is a village that was located literally between the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens, where all the royalty is buried. And it's right in the middle so that they could walk to work.
Right.
And these are the artisans who built the tombs.
Wow.
They built the royal tombs. And so during this is the New Kingdom period. Ramesses' reign is 1279 to 1213 BC. But the New Kingdom period really represents the height of Egyptian civilization and art and culture and power. And so the art that was created during this period, whether it's grand temples or tombs or funerary sculpture. It's really all on, the highest level. And so these artisans, the things that they also created for themselves, and they did create funerary stele for themselves for their own tombs, are just incredible. And it's very unusual to have an artisan village intact and excavated. I mean,
Right.
they're made of mud and brick. They literally have not stood the sands of time,
Yeah.
but there was this village that had been discovered. He continued with the excavation. And so in the exhibition, you have, the tools that they used
Right.
to chisel out, these tombs out of the side of the cliff, a palette with reed pens and the inkwells that would have been used to, write those, those hieratic scripts on the papyri. Um, the funerary statuary and the stele, is kind of like a stele is a limestone slab. It's generally kind of rounded at the top, and the imagery shows it's the deceased giving offerings to the gods to ensure passage through the underworld, and then the deceased's family giving offerings to him or her. So he found those. Oh, and then the other really cool thing, I mean,
It's all
lots of cool
cool.
things. It's all cool. It's all so cool. So there are these limestone fragments that wouldn't normally look like anything, but they have drawings on them. They have little sketches. And these are literally the sketch pads of the artisans. So imagine they're hacking away at a big limestone slab, maybe a big sculpture or one of these stele, and chips are flying off. And they need to work out a design, and oh, how do I draw this god? How do I draw this barge? How do I do this animal? And so they just pick up this limestone
That's
fragment and then kind of sketch it out, and
amazing.
then toss it.
Just throw it to the side.
Yeah, trash heap. So Schiaparelli found thousands of
Wow.
these ostrica. They're called ostrica. And thankfully, he did not discard them. He packed them up and he took them back to Turin. And so, what I like about these is that, obviously the artistry in the funerary sculpture and the monumental sculptures and everything is fantastic, mind blowing. But to me, the immediacy of these sketches, that were done quickly and freehand and,
Right.
really, you it brings these artisans to life.
Yeah.
There's an immediacy about it. And then another thing that just kind of blows my mind, there's so their hammers were wooden mallets, but they had copper alloy chisels to help
Right.
chisel out stuff. And so we have these two wooden hammers, and there's the indentation around the circumference of the hammer of banging away at these chisels, and the handle has a kind of a shiny patina on it from the oils of their hands.
Wow.
And so you think about somebody 3,000 years ago held this in their hand
Yeah.
and slaved away at building, the royal tombs. Because when a pharaoh came to power, he immediately started work on his, they called it the mansion of a million years, house of eternity. And so you'd have a crew of about 60 of these artisans that were slaving away, carving into the side of the cliffside, burrowing out the tomb, smoothing down the walls, doing all the
Right.
paintings. The walls are also inscribed with all of these spells from the Book of the Dead that you have to chant. So, so there's kind of all these different components in the exhibition. We start out with these monumental sculptures of pharaohs and goddesses that you would have found in temples. So you have that kind of context and sort of the idea of religion and the Egyptians, all these natural forces that they didn't understand, they couldn't control, floods and locusts and,
Right.
drought and all this stuff. And so that's why they developed this pantheon of gods and goddesses that they could pray to. And also, it was the pharaoh's job as kind of an intercessor between mortals and the gods to ensure that balance was kept in the universe, that the sun rose every day. So you go from that to the women's quarters, women in the palace, and all these wonderful things that, all these cosmetic tools. Beauty was very important to the Egyptians, but not just to be beautiful, but some things served medicinal purposes. So coal, well, think of Cleopatra with her
Right.
coal eyes. Well, coal actually protected the eyes from infection. It was a mineral called strychnite, and it was ground up and mixed with fat or oil so that you could apply it, and it protected the eye from infection and the harsh rays of the sun. Cosmetic powders also protected your skin from sunburn. Oils and unguents, perfumes. Perfumes were not alcohol based. They were made from spices and tree resins and fruits and flowers ground up, mixed with animal fat or oil, and so that moisturized your skin, because as we know, living in Texas, is pretty hot in Egypt. They had a pretty harsh climate. And then the other thing about beautification is that a healthy, beautiful body symbolizes, again, balance and harmony. And so you want that in this life, but you want that in the afterlife. So all of these little wonderful cosmetic tools and containers were included in the burials, so that they could have them in the afterlife. So that's where these things come from as well. So there's something for everybody in this exhibition. We've got it all.
Yeah, sounds amazing. And this runs till when?
So it runs till March 14th. And just want to mention as well, again, kind of in response to COVID and trying to provide our visitors with every possible avenue for experiencing the exhibition at whatever comfort level you have. We created for the first time a virtual reality tour. The designers that we worked with on the installation created this tour, and you can access that through our website. And so I think I mentioned earlier, you can either preview the exhibition, or after you leave the exhibition, you can go and revisit something. The audio tour script is on our website too. There, if you want to revisit that. We do have a certain amount of the didactics in Spanish on our website. And any of the programming that we've done, we had a wonderful inaugural lecture by Dr. Christian Greco, who's the now director of the Egizio. And then last week, Kara Cooney, who is this rock star Egyptologist, teaches at UCLA. She did a lecture last week, and you can get all of the lectures that we do are accessible on our YouTube channel, as well as all the other. We're doing a lot of virtual programming. I mean, even though the museum is open and we want people to come, we're still producing a lot of virtual content.
A lot of opportunities for everyone. So now
yeah,
I think,
exactly.
to mention as well that you've had some additions to your permanent collection as well. Do you mind talking a little bit about the collection in conversation?
Yeah, I'd love to. So that's what that is a little bit of a reorganization in a sense. I mean, it's a temporary exhibition, but it was in response to the fact that when we reopened the buildings, and we have two buildings, the European collection was in the Kahn building, the original Louis Kahn building. And the non-European, my Asian, African, Asian American, were in the pavilion, in 2 galleries in the pavilion, along with another special exhibition that had already been on view. And in an attempt to just kind of keep down the numbers, so to speak, we wanted the special exhibition up, but we needed to close the other galleries. And we needed to figure out a way to show those collections. You know, you can't just have European represented. That's not right.
You better believe it.
And we knew that. But it offered us this really great opportunity to look at the collections. And I worked with George Shackelford and Guillaume Kainz. George is our deputy director, and Guillaume is our one of our curators of European art. And we made a selection of non-European pieces, sculptures and objects, not any of the scrolls or paintings, but that we could intersperse amongst the European works of art to create these conversations. And we thought about kind of general themes that you find, parallels. So the idea of kingship and deities or deified rulers, you know, you have that in Asia, you have it in Egypt.
Yep.
You know, ideals of femininity, you know, in you know, a British portrait of a lady, or a 15th century Indian bronze sculpture of Parvati.
Wow.
You know, the mother goddess. Even things just like geometry. So we have this wonderful little Wari figurine from Peru, from the Wari culture, dates from 600 to 1000 AD. And we've put it in the gallery, which has our early 20th century works with Mondrian, which with his grids. This little Wari figurine is wearing a tunic that's very geometric. It has this kind of grid pattern on it. And so you're looking at this little figure, and then behind it, you're seeing Mondrian with this grid pattern. You know, so sometimes it was just this purely sort of visual thing. Sometimes it was just, you know, having a little bit of fun, you know, having the painting of George Stubbs' horse with Chinese tomb pottery figure of a horse dating to, you know, and the reason, and we're not really, you know, we didn't write any specific labels or anything. We didn't really do a lot of explanation. We really wanted it to be a visual experience.
Sure.
And for people to come up with their own connections and their own conversations and see things that maybe we don't even see, and see the collection in a different way. And the reason that we can do that, I mean, there's a couple reasons, and this is why the Kimball is such an amazing museum. And I'm so fortunate to work here in this beautiful building with this great collection, is that, you know, the collection, it's small, 350 works total of everything, around 350, but it's also everything, no matter what it is, you know, it's of the highest, you know, aesthetic caliber. And so you know, you can have a 7th century Nepalese gilt Buddha with, you know, a 15th century silver Madonna, you know, and again, ideas of deities, you know, religious icons,
right?
How those are depicted. Oh, there's a wonderful, like an African mother and child from the Makonde culture, juxtaposed with Italian images of the Madonna and child, you know, some that are, but even some fun things like the Michelangelo, the Torment of Saint Anthony, that has all the fabulous demons. And then we have this fantastic, another Chinese tomb pottery figurine of the earth spirit, which is a demon. And he's got these flames shooting out of his back, and he's kind of this composite animal, and he's snarling and everything. And so you look at that, and then you're looking at the demons in the Michelangelo, and just kind of fun. I mean, it's fun. It's but it does get you to thinking, and it does get you to look at the collection in a different way. So you turn lemons into lemonade.
It's a great point.
And it's been and the response that we've gotten from the public has been really, they love it. I mean, we will go back to putting the Asian and African and Ancient American back in the pavilion, but for now I think it's wonderful that we can do this.
Yeah, what an amazing juxtaposition of all of that art. That's just incredible. And I'm sure very insightful to hear how people perceive those. I don't want to say mixed media, but there is some
Well,
interpretive
yeah.
quality there that changes the aesthetic of what it is you're looking at. That's amazing. Great stuff. So,
Yeah.
wow.
So we're just, we're happy. We're happy to be open, and we're happy that people are coming to the museum, both to see the permanent collection and to see the special exhibition, and just to feel safe. But I think that, I know this is true for me, coming back to the museum, it helps you to feel normal, and art can make you feel wonderful. It brings beauty and imagination, and creativity and hope, into your life. I mean, civilization marches on, right?
Yes. As seen
And
by
we
all
and
of
we
the-
will we will survive,
Yes.
we will persevere.
I can't wait to see when, another 1,000 years from now, someone digs up a blue medical mask and says, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah, exactly.
And
Well, so you're finishing up heating your soup, I think.
I
And
am. I'm moving on to plating here.
okay, I'm moving on to plating as well. Finishing up with my plate.
So Jennifer, while you're doing that, can you tell me how and where can people find these wonderful works, websites, anything that you can give us in regards to tracking and keeping up with all of the fabulous stuff going on over there?
Right. Well, the main resource is going to be our website, www.kimbellart.org. And from the main page there, there's navigation at the top where it gives you, all the information on visiting, so hours, information on dining, on ticketing, and you can buy your tickets online for Nefertari. It's not a timed ticket, but it is suggested that if you to kind of have your ticket in hand, because we have different lines in the lobby.
Right.
But then also there's information on our collections and exhibitions. So current, past, upcoming. I have a wonderful exhibition coming up in the fall called Buddha, Shiva, Lotus, Dragon, which is from the Asia Society Museum in New York City. It's the Mr. and Mrs. John D. Rockefeller III collection of Asian art. It's an amazing, was private, then they established this museum, and it's a collection that is on par with the Kimball collection, if and then there's a whole section on education. Our education department has also had to do a major pivot. And as much as they can, I mean, they are amazing in now doing as much programming as they can virtually, artful readings and pictures and pages, and, just there's resources there for teachers. And then again, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you go to the Kimball, just type in Kimball YouTube, it'll take you to our YouTube site, and you can see there all the different lectures that we record all of our lectures, all of our programming that we're doing. We're still doing the Artist Eye program, which is where we invite a living artist, because we don't normally deal with living artists in our collection, but invite them to come to the museum and talk about works that inspire them from the Kimball collection, and then bring a work of their own. Well, we've had to suspend the in gallery, but now we're doing that virtually. And I have one coming up on February 20th with Matt Clark, who's an artist in Dallas. We're also doing it's called On the Road with the Kimball, where curators such as myself are doing little presentations on, places that we've traveled. I've been so fortunate, my job, I travel a lot. And one of the things I do is I lead tours for our patrons. And I've traveled all over Asia and Europe. And so I have a program that I'm putting together for the 19th of February on Greece and Croatia. But Robert McCann, our membership manager, who I travel with, just did one on Cuba. George Shackelford did one on, I think, on Hidden Paris. Man. So the lectures are there. So lots of content that can be accessed through the YouTube or through the website. And you can also just call, you can call if you're not computer savvy and you just want to know what's going on. The receptionist is here to answer the phone and answer your questions. So, yeah.
It
I think
sounds like you've got all
yeah.
the bases covered.
Yeah.
Jennifer, it has been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
I can't wait to get over there and check out all this wonderful stuff.
Awesome.
Are you ready for presentation?
I am.
Let's show off that wonderful food one more time.
Okay.
Mine looks a little more like egg drop soup once you get the crackers in there. And
yeah. Look at that. So we have this soup, salad, quiche. Oh, this is the Scarborough Fair quiche because it has parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme.
Wow.
And I'm excited about this lunch.
As you should be. I'm going to show you. I just want to show this to everybody at home. What happens when I get too engrossed in our conversation? So I told you I broke the cap off, and that's how you manually get into a thing of chicken noodle soup. So thanks for keeping me occupied. And
yeah, you broke through that like the looters broke through the sarcophagus lid.
That was exactly my inspiration.
You wanted to get in there.
There's no way I could have ended this without showing some sort of food. So I was bound and determined. So thank you for that. I've learned another new skill and some valuable information.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, Jennifer, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure.
Keep up the great work over there, and sincerely cannot wait to get over there and check that stuff out. So thank you so much. If there's anything we can do for you guys, please don't hesitate to reach out. And that concludes another box lunch, folks. We'll be back again next Monday. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to the people around you, and we'll see you all again real soon. Bye-bye, everybody. Bon appetit.
Bye.
We'll see you soon.